Commander Jessica Rourke stared out the window of the warship as it floated in the vast emptiness of space. Below her, Earth looked peaceful, but that peace was a lie. Humanity had just made contact with the Zyathians, an alien race who claimed to be here to help. They said they had advanced technology to offer in exchange for what they called human donations. Most of the world believed them, seeing only the shiny ships and promises of a better future. But Jessica knew something was off. She was one of the few who had been suspicious from the beginning. As a top officer in Earth's military, she had been assigned to monitor the Zyathians and their interactions with Earth. Her mission was to gather information and report back to the government. At first, everything seemed fine. The Zyathians were kind, their technology was impressive, and they seemed to be offering nothing but peace. But as time passed, Jessica began to notice small things that didn't add up: strange behavior, suspicious movements, and vague answers to simple questions. When she got word that Earth's leaders had agreed to send a donation of people to the Zyathians, Jessica's suspicion turned into fear. She had no idea what this donation really meant, but she knew it wasn't good. Her fears were confirmed when she was briefed about a new secret project. Human beings were being taken to the moon. No one knew exactly what was happening there, but rumors were spreading, and the whispers weren't kind. Commander Rourke, a voice broke her thoughts. She turned to see Lieutenant Samuels, her trusted second-in-command, standing at attention. He was a tall, quiet man, always calm under pressure. "We have just intercepted a transmission from the moon base. It doesn't make sense, but it looks like they're processing humans." Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. Processing humans. What did that even mean? "Show me," she ordered. Samuels quickly loaded the data on a screen in front of her. It was hard to make sense of the strange alien language, but the images were clear. The Zyathians were indeed taking humans, whole families, workers, and even children, and moving them into large sealed buildings. There was no sign of violence or force. The people appeared to be walking willingly, like they were being guided somewhere. But the expression in their eyes, the fear hidden beneath their calm faces, was unmistakable. "Why are they doing this?" Jessica muttered, more to herself than to Samuels. "We don't know, but we need to find out fast," Samuels replied. "We've already lost contact with several of the colonies that were chosen for donation. The people there are gone, completely." Jessica's heart raced. What kind of sick plan were the Zyathians executing? Her mind began to race. She had to warn Earth. But would they believe her? She had no concrete proof yet, only images and her gut feeling. "There's something wrong, Samuels. I don't care how advanced their technology is. No one just donates people without a price," Jessica said firmly. "We need to go to the moon. Now." Samuels looked hesitant. "Commander, if we go there, we'll be walking straight into their hands. We have no idea what we're dealing with. They could be waiting for us." "We don't have a choice," Jessica replied. "If we don't act, we may never get the chance again." The warship's engines roared to life as the crew prepared for a dangerous mission. The journey to the moon would take several hours, and they would be flying into the unknown. Jessica knew that if the Zyathians were really doing something sinister, they wouldn't hesitate to stop anyone from finding out. But she couldn't turn back. Too many lives were at stake. As the ship approached the moon, the crew could see the massive Zyathian base. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, shiny, metallic, and alien, looming over the surface like a dark fortress. Jessica's stomach twisted. Whatever was going on inside that base, she was going to find out, no matter the cost. "Ready yourself, Lieutenant," Jessica ordered. "We land in 10 minutes. No one leaves without orders." As they descended into the moon's low gravity, a silence fell over the crew. They were about to walk into the heart of the unknown, and no one knew what they would find. But one thing was certain. The Zyathians, so-called Dalmatians, weren't what they seemed, and Jessica was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing whatever horrors lay hidden within the breeding factory that awaited them. Jessica Rourke's heart pounded in her chest as the warship touched down on the moon's surface. The cold, gray landscape stretched out in all directions, and the massive Zyathian breeding facility loomed in the distance. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was happening inside that base. The donations were no accident. Something much darker was at play, and she was about to walk right into it. "Commander," Lieutenant Samuel said, his voice tense. "We've landed. The base is just ahead." Jessica nodded and adjusted her helmet. The moon was silent, except for the faint hum of their ship's engines powering down. The small group of soldiers and scientists that accompanied her gathered their gear, checking their weapons and scanning the area for any signs of danger. Their mission was simple: find out what the Zyathians were doing with the humans they had taken and get back to Earth with the truth. But Jessica knew it wouldn't be that easy. Nothing about this felt simple. As they made their way toward the breeding facility, Jessica couldn't help but think about what they had seen on the transmission. The humans who were being processed had looked confused, lost even. None of them seemed to resist. It was almost like they were being hypnotized or drugged. But why? What were the Zyathians really doing with them? The soldiers moved cautiously, their boots leaving footprints in the soft dust. The facility was massive, built into the side of a mountain, and seemed almost alive with strange lights and moving shadows. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. They reached the outer walls of the base and found an entrance. It was sealed, but a Zyathian control panel was just beside it. Jessica stepped forward, and with the help of one of the tech specialists, they quickly hacked into the system. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and they stepped inside. The air was thick with a strange, sterile smell. The walls of the facility were smooth and metallic, giving off a faint glow. As they moved deeper into the base, they saw human figures. Some were sitting, some standing, lost in a trance-like state. Their faces were pale, eyes wide open, but unseeing. "Are they okay?" asked Samuels, his voice filled with concern. "They're alive, but something's wrong," Jessica replied. "They don't look like they're being forced to stay. They look trapped, like they can't leave." Jessica's mind raced. Why were the Zyathians keeping them alive if they weren't using them for food or labor? The answer wasn't clear, but she was determined to find it. As they walked further into the facility, they came across a large chamber. It was filled with strange, glowing machines, and in the center of the room stood a figure. It was a human, but not quite. The figure was tall and unnaturally still, its eyes glowing faintly with a yellow light. Its skin was pale, and its features were distorted, as if something had altered it. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. "It's a hybrid," Samuels whispered, fear creeping into his voice. The creature turned its head, its glowing eyes locking onto Jessica's. She felt a chill run down her spine. There was something human about it, but also something alien and wrong. It opened its mouth, but instead of speaking, a mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Human Specimen 12. Resisting integration. Terminate." Before anyone could react, the hybrid lunged forward with incredible speed. Samuels barely had time to raise his weapon before the creature grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Get back," Jessica shouted, drawing her own weapon and firing. The blast hit the hybrid in the shoulder, but it didn't seem to slow down. It roared, a terrifying sound that seemed to echo in every corner of the room. The soldiers rushed forward, opening fire, but the hybrid was too fast. It twisted and turned, avoiding their shots with unnatural agility. Jessica's mind raced as she watched the creature effortlessly overpower the soldiers. This was no ordinary human. She couldn't let it escape. With a deep breath, she charged forward, tackling the hybrid and knocking it to the ground. Her soldiers moved quickly to restrain it, but it was clear they weren't dealing with a simple creature. This was the result of the Zyathians' twisted experiments. Human and alien DNA combined into something dangerous and unpredictable. The hybrid snarled, but Jessica held it down. "What have they done?" she whispered. "What are they trying to make?" As the creature thrashed beneath her, the door to the chamber slid open, and several Zayathian soldiers entered. Their glowing eyes focused on Jessica and her team, weapons raised. Jessica knew this was only the beginning. The Zayathians had been creating hybrids like this one, but why? And how many more were out there? "We have to get out," Samuel said, his voice shaking. "This isn't a rescue mission anymore. It's a fight for survival." Jessica nodded. They had learned something horrifying, but it wasn't enough. They had to go deeper into the base and find the truth. The Zayathians wouldn't let them leave without a fight, but they had no choice. Earth's future depended on the answers hidden in this alien breeding factory. The battle for survival had begun. Jessica Rourke and her team were deep inside the Zayathian breeding facility, and every step forward seemed to lead them deeper into a nightmare. The hybrid they had just fought wasn't the only one. As they made their way through the base, they found more. Some were human-like, but others were barely recognizable. It was clear now. What the Zayathians were doing wasn't just about experimentation. They were creating something new, something dangerous. The team moved quickly, checking each corner for any more threats. The Zayathians' soldiers had heard the commotion and were now closing in. Jessica knew they didn't have much time before reinforcements arrived. They had to find the source of the experiments, the place where all this twisted work was being done. The truth about what the Zayathians were planning was just out of reach, but every piece of the puzzle felt more terrifying than the last. "We need to get to the core of the facility," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The central lab. That's where they'll be keeping everything." Lieutenant Samuels nodded. "Got it, Commander. But we need to move fast. More hybrids are coming, and if we don't find what we need soon, we're trapped here." The team pushed forward, moving swiftly through the narrow hallways. The Zayathians had been good at keeping their facility hidden, but now that they were inside, the team could see how vast it really was. They passed rooms filled with strange machines and tanks containing what looked like human body parts. Eyes, limbs, even organs, all floating in a thick, clear fluid. It was sickening. The hybrids were the product of these twisted experiments. But why? What was the Zayathian race hoping to achieve? Finally, they reached the heart of the facility. It was a large open room, and the air was thick with a strange humming sound. In the center of the room stood a massive, glowing chamber, filled with vats and machines that hummed with alien energy. And there, floating in one of the vats, was the answer they had been searching for. Inside the tank was a perfect human-alien hybrid. It was a human form, but its skin was a glowing blue, its eyes shining like bright stars. The hybrid was breathing, but barely. Its body was suspended in some kind of stasis. Jessica stared at it, feeling a wave of horror wash over her. This wasn't just some random experiment. This was the Zayathians' ultimate creation, a new species designed to be stronger, faster, and more durable than humans. But what did the Zayathians want with it? Before Jessica could process what she was seeing, the door to the chamber slid open with a hiss, and Zayathian soldiers flooded in. Their glowing eyes locked onto the humans, and their weapons hummed to life. "Get to the control room," Jessica shouted. "We need to shut this down now." The soldiers opened fire, and the team scattered. Jessica ducked behind a pillar, firing back as Samuels and the others did the same. The Zayathians' weapons were powerful, and their movements were swift and deadly. Jessica had no doubt that if they were caught, they wouldn't make it out alive. Samuels fired a blast that hit one of the Zayathians square in the chest, sending it crashing to the floor. But there were too many of them. Jessica's heart raced as she realized their chances of winning this fight were slim. They had to get out of the room and to the control room where they could disable the systems keeping the hybrids alive. "Move," Jessica shouted, leading the way toward the control room at the far end of the chamber. The soldiers followed closely behind, their weapons blazing as they moved. A few Zayatheans fell, but more kept coming, their eyes glowing brighter as they advanced. The team reached the control room and barricaded themselves inside. Jessica quickly scanned the controls, trying to figure out how to shut everything down. Samuels helped her, his fingers flying over the buttons as he hacked into the alien system. "I'm in, but we need to be quick. There's a countdown for something, maybe an automatic defense system." Jessica's mind raced. They didn't have much time before the Zayatheans would unleash whatever horrors they had planned next. Shut it all down. Now. Samuels hit the final command, and the entire room lit up with a loud beep. The machines powering the hybrids went dark, and the hum of the facility's energy slowly died. For a moment, it was quiet. But then, an alarm blared through the speakers, and the ground shook beneath their feet. The countdown had started. "We've triggered the self-destruct," Samuel said, his voice full of urgency. "We've got minutes before this place blows." Jessica cursed. They had no choice but to fight their way out. "Let's go. Move," she ordered. "We have to leave now." The team rushed out of the control room, the Zayatheans hot on their heels. The countdown was ticking down, and they had to make it back to their warship before the entire facility exploded. As the warship's landing bay came into view, Jessica's heart pounded. They were almost there. But just as they reached the ship, the ground beneath them cracked, and from the darkness emerged a massive Zayathian hybrid, twice the size of the others. It roared, and the earth shook with its power. "Everyone, stay close," Jessica yelled. "This isn't over yet." The final battle had only just begun. The explosion of the Zayathian breeding facility was inevitable. The countdown had already begun, and the base's self-destruct system was triggered. Jessica and her team had only minutes to escape, but just as they reached their warship, they were confronted by an enormous Zayathian hybrid. It was unlike anything they had seen before, bigger, faster, and more terrifying. The hybrid's massive form emerged from the shadows, its glowing eyes focused on Jessica and her team. It growled, low and rumbling, as if daring them to try and escape. Jessica's heart raced. They had no choice but to fight it off or die trying. "Everyone, fall back," Jessica shouted, but she knew they didn't have much time. The hybrid was fast and powerful. If they didn't act quickly, they would be overwhelmed. Samuels fired first, aiming for the creature's chest. The blast hit, but the hybrid barely flinched. It roared in fury and charged forward, knocking one of the soldiers to the ground with a single swipe. The force of the attack sent the soldier sprawling, but thankfully he scrambled back to his feet. "Watch out," Jessica yelled as the hybrid swung its massive claws toward them. It was too fast for anyone to dodge. Samuels and the others fired again, but the creature's thick skin absorbed most of the shots. Jessica felt a rush of adrenaline. This was their only chance to escape. She had to think fast. The hybrid was strong, but it wasn't invincible. The warship's cannons could help, but there wasn't time to get inside and power them up. They would have to fight it up close. "Cover me," Jessica shouted, her voice sharp with command. She sprinted forward, her weapon raised. The hybrid focused its attention on her, its glowing eyes narrowing. Jessica reached the side of the beast, her weapon aimed at its exposed flank. She fired, and the shot tore through the creature's thick hide. The hybrid howled in pain, but quickly spun to strike her. Before it could reach her, Samuels and the others fired, forcing the hybrid to retreat for a moment. But it wasn't done. The creature charged again, faster than ever, and slammed into Jessica with the force of a freight train. She was thrown backward, landing hard on the ground, her breath knocked out of her. "Commander," Samuel shouted, rushing to her side. Jessica struggled to get to her feet. Her ribs ached, but there was no time to rest. The hybrid was already moving in for another attack. She knew they couldn't keep fighting like this. The self-destruct timer was still ticking down, and the hybrid was too strong to defeat with sheer firepower alone. "We need a plan," Jessica muttered through gritted teeth. She grabbed her weapon, still shaken from the blow, but her mind was clear. "The only way we're getting out of here is to destroy it." The team exchanged worried glances. The hybrid was nearly indestructible, and they were running out of time. Jessica looked around. They had no choice but to use the environment to their advantage. The warship's engines were powerful, but they could also be used as a trap. "Get to the ship," Jessica ordered. "We'll use the engines to take it down." The soldiers hesitated for a moment, unsure of what Jessica was planning, but they trusted her. They sprinted toward the warship, with the hybrid hot on their heels. As they reached the ship, Jessica ducked into the cockpit and quickly began powering up the ship's systems. The engines roared to life, but she wasn't aiming for flight. She needed the hybrid close enough to the ship to use its thrusters as a weapon. "Now," Jessica shouted. The team made a quick dash to the back of the ship, leading the hybrid right into the engine's path. The creature roared as it charged, its massive claws slashing the air. But just as it came within range, Jessica slammed the control panel, and the ship's thrusters shot out a powerful blast of energy. The force of the explosion hit the hybrid directly, sending it flying back and crashing into the side of the warship. The hybrid screeched in fury, struggling to get back on its feet, but it was clearly weakened. The intense heat and force of the thrusters had taken a toll on it. Jessica didn't wait for it to recover. "Everyone, move," she shouted as she pressed a final button. The engines blasted once more, this time with enough power to send the hybrid tumbling across the ground, finally knocking it unconscious. The creature lay still, its body smoking from the blast. For a moment, there was silence. The team stood, breathing heavily, staring at the fallen hybrid. But the warship's countdown timer was still ticking down. They didn't have much time. "Get to the ship," Jessica ordered again. "We're leaving now." The soldiers scrambled aboard the warship as the engines fired up again, this time with the force to launch them into space. The hybrid was down, but there was still the danger of the base exploding. They had no time to lose. As the warship lifted off, Jessica looked back at the Zayathian base, now far below them. The countdown had reached its final seconds. A massive explosion lit up the moon's surface, sending shockwaves that rocked the ship. But they were safe, at least for now. Jessica leaned back in her seat, breathing a sigh of relief. They had survived the fight, but the truth about what the Zayathians had been doing still haunted her. The hybrids, the experiments, the dark secrets, they were only the beginning. Whatever the Zayathians had planned for Earth was far from over. "We need to warn Earth," she said quietly to herself. "The real battle has only just begun." The warship broke through the atmosphere, leaving the burning wreckage of the Zayathian base behind. Jessica Rourke, though exhausted, couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach. The battle had been brutal, and their escape had been nothing short of a miracle, but it didn't feel like a victory. They had learned nothing about the Zayathians' true plan, and the warship's sensors were picking up more troubling signs. "Commander, we've got company," Samuel's voice came through over the comms. Jessica's heart skipped a beat. She moved to the front of the ship, eyes scanning the view screen. Several Zayathian warships were closing in fast. The Zayathians had sent a fleet to intercept them. The team had barely escaped the breeding facility, and now it seemed like the real fight was about to begin. "Brace for impact," Jessica barked. The warship rocked as a blast from one of the Zayathian ships hit their shields. The team was jolted forward, but Jessica quickly regained control, expertly maneuvering the ship to avoid the next shot. "Lock on to the closest target. Let's take out their weapons," she commanded. The gunnery officer targeted one of the enemy ships, and Jessica fired, sending a powerful blast that exploded its engines. The ship was knocked off course, and for a moment, it looked like they might have a chance to escape. But more Zayathian ships closed in. The odds were quickly becoming impossible. "We need a plan, Commander," Lieutenant Samuel said, his voice tense. "We can't fight them all. We're outnumbered." Jessica's mind raced. They needed to warn Earth about the hybrid experiments, about the Zayathians' terrifying capabilities. If they could just get back to Earth, they could expose the threat before it was too late. But with the Zayathian fleet on their tail, escaping seemed impossible. "Engage the cloaking device," she ordered. The warship's systems hummed as the cloaking device powered up, rendering them invisible to enemy sensors. They had a brief window of opportunity. But Jessica knew they couldn't stay cloaked forever. They had to get the information they had gathered to Earth before the Zayathians could track them down. "Get to the communications room," she said to Samuels. "We need to send everything we've learned to Earth now." Samuels nodded, already moving toward the back of the ship. Jessica stayed at the controls, keeping a close eye on the Zayathian ships as they searched for them. The cloaking device wouldn't last long, but they had just enough time to send the data they had collected. Files on the hybrid experiments, detailed recordings of the Zayathian activities, everything. In the communications room, Samuels worked quickly, uploading all the information to Earth's defense network. The Zayathians were likely to jam their signals soon, so they had to make this count. "This is Earth's last chance," Samuels said quietly, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "If they don't act now, we're finished." The urgency in his voice hit Jessica hard. They had seen the horrors of the Zayathian breeding factory firsthand, but what lay ahead was even worse. The Zayathians had only scratched the surface of their plans, and whatever they were preparing could change the course of human history forever. Jessica looked out of the cockpit window, her gaze narrowing as the Zayathian fleet remained just outside their sensor range. The cloaking device was still holding, but the Zayathians were smart. They would be able to detect them soon. "Just a few more seconds," Samuels called from the back. "We're almost there." A loud beep interrupted him, and the cloaking device flickered. The Zayathians were closing in. "They've found us," Jessica shouted. "All hands, prepare for combat." Without warning, the ship was rocked by a massive blast. The cloaking device failed completely, and their position was revealed. The Zayathians weren't going to let them escape. "Return fire," Jessica shouted, pushing the ship into evasive maneuvers as her team fired the ship's weapons. But the Zayathian ships were relentless. They swarmed the warship from all directions, and soon Jessica's ship was taking heavy fire. Samuels reappeared in the cockpit, his face grim. "The data's sent, but we're not out of the woods yet. We won't make it if we stay here," Jessica said, slamming her fist against the controls. "We need to break through their line and head for the nearest jump gate." "We don't have the firepower," Samuels replied. "The engines are taking too much damage." Jessica's eyes locked onto the Zayathian fleet. They couldn't give up, not now. She knew they had to take a risk, a big one. She quickly calculated the trajectory for a jump, and if they did it right, they might just escape. "I'm going to try a high-speed jump," she said, her voice steady. "Hold on." Without waiting for a response, she slammed the ship into full throttle. The Zayathian ships fired, and Jessica dodged a blast at the last second, narrowly avoiding destruction. The warship sped toward the jump gate, and with one final move, Jessica punched the coordinates into the nav system. "Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched as the jump gate activated, and the familiar dizzying sensation of faster-than-light travel enveloped them. The warship shot through space, escaping the Zayathian fleet, just barely. As the ship stabilized, Jessica took a deep breath. They had made it, barely. But they still weren't safe. The truth was out there, and Earth had to be ready. Whatever the Zayathians had planned, humanity had to be prepared to fight back. "Set course for Earth," Jessica ordered. "It's time to warn them." The warship drifted quietly through the vastness of space, the hum of its engines the only sound in the cockpit. Jessica Rourke sat at the controls, staring at the blinking lights on the dashboard. They had made it out of the Zayathian fleet's reach, but they were far from safe. Their jump had only taken them out of immediate danger, not out of the fight. Now, they were heading to Earth, their last hope to stop the Zayathian invasion before it was too late. "Commander, we're approaching Earth's orbit," Samuel's voice crackled through the comms. "We should be able to send a signal through their defense network shortly." Jessica's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She couldn't afford to think about the damage the ship had taken during the escape. She couldn't afford to think about how much time they had left. They had to warn Earth. They had to stop the Zayathians. "Good," Jessica replied, her voice sharp. "I need the fleet on high alert. Make sure they're ready for anything. We don't know how fast the Zayathians can react." "Understood, Commander," Samuels responded. "I'll notify them immediately." As the warship neared Earth, Jessica felt a wave of mixed emotions. Earth was the only home humanity had, and now it was at risk. She thought of her family, her friends, all the people she had sworn to protect. She couldn't let them fall to the Zayathians. Not after everything they had already seen. Not after the horrors they had witnessed at the breeding facility. The warship entered Earth's atmosphere, and the crew braced for a landing. The ship shook slightly as they descended, but Jessica skillfully guided it down, landing just outside of the nearest military base. The bay doors slid open, and Jessica and her team rushed out. "Commander Rourke," General Hawkins greeted her as she stepped onto the tarmac. His face was serious, but there was a trace of relief in his eyes. "It's good to see you alive. We didn't think we'd hear from you again." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "That's because the Zayathians are hiding their plans. They'd been experimenting on humans to create hybrids, new soldiers, faster and stronger than anything we faced. And it's not just us they're after. Earth is their next target." General Hawkins frowned, his expression darkening. "You're sure about this?" "We've seen the hybrids. We fought them." Jessica's voice was firm, unshaken by the gravity of what she was saying. "They're planning something massive, and we need to stop them now. We don't have time to waste." Hawkins nodded slowly. "All right. We'll activate the Global Defense Network and prepare for a full briefing. The sooner we get this information to the top brass, the better." Jessica followed him into the base, and soon they were seated in a secure room filled with high-ranking officers. Samuels and the rest of the team stood off to the side, while Hawkins and the others began to sort through the data they had brought back. It didn't take long for everyone to realize the scale of the Zayathians' threat. "This is worse than we thought," General Hawkins said after reviewing the data. "If they're creating hybrid armies, we're looking at an invasion on a scale we've never seen. We need to prepare immediately. We'll need all available fleets in position, along with a full defense plan." Another officer spoke up. "But if they've already infiltrated our systems, then we have no time to waste," Jessica interrupted. "The Zayathians can move fast. We need to be ready for them." The officers nodded in agreement. Plans began to form, and the room buzzed with activity. Jessica stayed on edge, her mind racing through the possibilities. The Zayathians had to be stopped, but there were so many unknowns. How far had they infiltrated Earth's systems? How many hybrids had they already deployed? "We'll need more than just military power," Jessica said, her voice sharp. "We need intelligence. We need to track them before they can strike." "We'll start with a global sweep," Hawkins replied. "We'll locate their breeding facilities and try to shut them down before they get any more hybrids ready for combat." Jessica nodded. "Good, but we need to act fast. We don't have time to wait for them to come to us. We need to take the fight to them." The team spent the next few hours helping coordinate Earth's defense. The Zayathians had to be stopped, and the clock was ticking. But as Jessica sat in the command center, watching Earth's defenses start to mobilize, a nagging thought wouldn't leave her mind. They had only seen the beginning of the Zayathians' plans. If the hybrids were only a part of it, what else could they be preparing? She turned to Samuels, who was standing nearby. deep in thought. You think we've seen everything? Samuel shook his head slowly. No, Commander. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's something else. Something bigger. Jessica met his eyes, her resolve hardening. We'll find it. And we'll stop them. The team had survived the Zayathian facility, fought through their fleet, and made it back to Earth. But this wasn't over. The true battle was just beginning. The Zayathians weren't just fighting for dominance. They were fighting for survival. And they would stop at nothing to see their twisted plans through. Jessica couldn't afford to lose. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. The sun had barely risen over Earth's horizon when the alarms blared. The Zayathians had launched their attack. General Hawkins' voice crackled through the comms as he gave orders to activate all defense systems. But Jessica Rourke knew it wasn't enough. The Zayathians had been planning for this for too long. Their army of hybrid soldiers was already on Earth, and the invasion was in full swing. Commander Rourke, we've spotted multiple enemy ships entering Earth's atmosphere, Samuel said, his voice tight with urgency. They're coming in fast. They're targeting major cities. Jessica's hands tightened on the controls. She and her team had helped Earth prepare, but there was no way to stop the full force of the invasion now. They had to get to the heart of the Zayathian plan. The hybrids were just the beginning, but Earth's defenses had already begun to fight back. We have to take out the command center, Jessica said, her mind racing. The Zayathians won't stop until they have full control. We need to hit them where it hurts. Hawkins' voice echoed in her earpiece. The command center is on the move, Commander. It's somewhere in the eastern part of the continent, but it's heavily guarded. Jessica looked around the war room, where the military teams were preparing for ground combat. Samuels, her most trusted officer, stood by her side. We'll need a strike team, Jessica said, her voice calm despite the chaos. Get a small group of our best soldiers together. We'll make our move. Within minutes, a small team of soldiers, equipped with the best weapons Earth had, was ready. The warship was prepared for another assault, but this time they had to get in close. The Zayathians had been expecting an invasion. They were ready. The warship's engines roared as it shot into the sky, heading toward the enemy's position. The Zayathian ships loomed large, filling the sky. They were everywhere. The hybrids, creatures stronger than anything Earth had seen, were already causing chaos on the ground. As the warship soared through the air, Jessica couldn't help but think of how everything had led to this moment. The hybrid soldiers they had seen on the Zayathian base, the terrifying strength of the Zayathians, and now Earth's final stand. She wouldn't let humanity fall. The warship landed just outside the Zayathian command center. As the soldiers disembarked, Jessica gave one last order. Stay sharp, everyone. The Zayathians won't go down easily. The team moved quickly, staying low as they approached the heavily fortified compound. A few Zayathian soldiers were stationed outside, but they were no match for Earth's trained soldiers. The hybrids, however, were another story. They were already inside the compound, moving fast, and showing no mercy. Jessica's team fought through the outer defenses, taking out the Zayathian soldiers one by one. But as they neared the heart of the command center, they encountered something worse than they'd ever imagined. A massive hybrid emerged from the shadows, taller than any human, its eyes glowing with a ferocity that sent a chill down Jessica's spine. It was unlike anything they had faced before, faster, stronger, and more intelligent. The air seemed to thrum with its energy as it charged at them. Get back, Samuel shouted, opening fire on the creature. The bullets seemed to bounce off its thick skin. The hybrid roared, its claws clashing the air. Jessica dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a deadly strike. We need a new plan, Jessica shouted as the hybrid closed in. She grabbed a grenade from her belt and tossed it toward the creature. The explosion caused a momentary distraction, but the hybrid was far from defeated. It roared in fury, its attention now fully on Jessica. Without hesitation, Jessica pulled out her blaster, charging forward. She aimed for the creature's exposed chest, firing relentlessly. With each shot, the hybrid staggered, but it didn't go down. Not yet. "Cover me," Jessica yelled. Samuels and the others continued to fire on the creature, forcing it to stumble backward. Jessica took a deep breath, steadied herself, and made her final move. With a roar of her own, she charged forward, and with a single well-placed shot, struck the hybrid's weak spot, a small area on its neck. The creature staggered, its legs buckling beneath it, as it collapsed to the ground with a mighty thud. The team stood still for a moment, breathing heavily, staring at the fallen hybrid. It was over. For now. "Let's move," Jessica said, as the team quickly regrouped and entered the command center. Inside, the Zyathians were preparing for their next strike, but they were caught off guard when the team stormed in. Jessica and her soldiers made quick work of the remaining Zyathian commanders, and within minutes they had control of the command center. "Mission accomplished, Commander," Samuel said as he accessed the control panels. "The Zyathians are retreating." Jessica exhaled, her body still tense. It wasn't over yet. They had dealt a heavy blow to the Zyathians, but there would be more battles ahead. Earth wasn't safe. Not yet. "We'll be ready," Jessica said firmly. "The fight isn't over." But today, humanity took a stand. As the team made their way back to the warship, Jessica looked up at the sky. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about fighting for their future, for every person on Earth. They had won this battle. But the war was far from over, and Jessica Rourke would be ready.